So you're thinking about Stanford. It's one of the most selective universities on the planet, and we're going to crack the code on how to get in. We're diving deep into the application, breaking down the numbers, and figuring out what it really takes to make your application shine. All right, let's jump right in.
The very first thing you probably hear about Stanford is this number right here, 3.6%. That's the undergrad acceptance rate. I mean, think about it. For every 100 people who apply, less than 4 actually get in. That is a seriously intimidating number. And you can see why getting in feels almost impossible.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. With odds like that, how does anyone actually do it? Well, I can tell you it's not just about getting lucky. There's a formula, a set of things that all successful applications have in common. And we're about to break down every single piece, going way beyond that one scary number.
First things first, let's just get right to it and talk about the academics. There's really no way around it. Your grades and test scores are the first major hurdle. They're the foundation that everything else is built on. So, what kind of numbers are we actually talking about here?
Okay, check this out. The average GPA of a student who gets into Stanford is a 3.94. A 3.94. That basically means you have to be at the absolute top of your class. And not just in the easy classes. We're talking about the most challenging courses your school offers, like AP or IB, and you gotta be acing them. Stanford wants to see solid proof that you can handle and even crush their super demanding classes.
And then we've got the standardized tests. For the SAT, the average score is a whopping 1540. A score like that puts you in the tippy-top percentile of everyone who takes the test. It just goes to show how incredibly competitive the testing game is for a school like this.
And what if you're an ACT person? Well, the average score for an admitted student is a 35. Yep, just like the SAT, that score is way, way up there. So you see, these three things, your GPA, your SAT, and your ACT, they pretty much set the academic baseline. They're what you need to even be considered a serious applicant.
All right, let's take a closer look at this table. The average SAT is 1540, sure, but look at the range. The 25th percentile is still a 1510, and the 75th is a 1570. Now, what's really interesting here is what this implies. It means that even if you're at the lower end of this range, you're not totally out of the running if, and this is a big F, the other parts of your application are absolutely incredible. And that brings us to our next point. What happens after the numbers?
So, you've got the grades, you've got the test scores. Now what? This is where everything changes. The application goes from being about data to being about your story. This is your big chance to show the admissions committee who you are. This is where you get to take control of the narrative.
I mean, just read this prompt. This is a real essay question from Stanford. They're not asking for your academic awards here. They're asking you to show some personality. They want to picture you on campus, hanging out in a dorm, being part of the community. This question is basically them saying, hey, show us the real you.
Let's put it this way. Your transcript is the what? It shows your academic performance, your discipline, your ability to handle tough coursework. But your essays, they're the who. They're where you reveal your personality, what you're curious about, your character, your voice. Remember, Stanford isn't just admitting a GPA, they're admitting a whole person.
And these 3 short essays really get to the heart of it all. First, they want to know about an idea that genuinely gets you excited about learning. Second is that famous roommate note we just saw. And third, they want to know what kind of unique contribution you'd make to life at Stanford. See the pattern? All 3 questions are trying to figure out what you're passionate about and what kind of impact you'll have.
Now, another huge part of your story is actually told by other people. I'm talking about letters of recommendation. They give the admissions committee a crucial outside look at who you are, adding a whole other dimension to your application.
So here are the rules. Stanford needs 2 letters from teachers, and they really prefer them to be from your junior or senior year in core subjects like English, math, or science. They also let you submit 1 optional letter, but you should only do that if it adds something totally new and valuable that they can't find anywhere else in your application.
So how do you make sure you get amazing letters? You've got to be smart about it. First, pick teachers in subjects that are related to what you want to major in. But even more important, choose people who actually know you, the ones who've seen you get excited about an idea or work through a tough problem. And please ask them early. Give them your resume, your essays, anything that will help them write a killer letter. And of course, don't forget to follow up with a thank you note. It goes a long way. Okay, so we've covered how to get in, but let's talk about the elephant in the room, paying for it. The cost of a top university can be just as scary as the acceptance rate. So let's talk about the real cost of Stanford and bust a few myths while we're at it.
To really get Stanford's approach to financial aid, let's start with a bit of sticker shock. Now, hold on, this number is for a first-year MBA student, not an undergrad, but it shows you the kind of sky-high cost that people associate with a degree from Stanford. It's the kind of number that makes you think it's completely out of reach. But for undergrads, it's a very different story.
All right, let's bring this whole thing back down to earth. For undergrads, even though that sticker price is high, the average need-based scholarship for a freshman is more than $74,000. That one fact completely flips the script. Stanford has a gigantic endowment, and they use it to make sure that if you get in, you can afford to go.
And this table shows you exactly how it works. This is the average net cost, what families actually end up paying, broken down by their income. Look at this. For families earning less than $75,000 a year, the average cost is under $5,000. And even for families earning up to $200,000, the cost is way, way less than the sticker price. And here are the big headline-grabbing policies. If your family makes less than $150,000 a year, you pay zero tuition. If they make less than $100,000, you pay zero for tuition, room, and board. And this last one is huge. Stanford doesn't expect students to take out loans. Their financial aid comes as scholarships and grants, which means you don't have to pay it back. It's a game changer.
Okay, for our final section, let's talk about what the process looks like for applicants coming from outside the United States. If you're an international student, there are a few extra hoops to jump through, especially when it comes to things like visas and language requirements.
So most international students at Stanford will have one of two types of visas, the F1 or the J1. One of the main differences is about money. For a J1 visa, less than half of your funding can come from your own pocket or your family's. The F1 visa doesn't have that rule. They also have different regulations about working and what your family members are allowed to do.
You'll also have to prove you're proficient in English. Now, while specific test scores like the ones you see here for some of the grad schools aren't always a strict requirement for undergrads, Stanford expects you to have a really strong command of English throughout your entire application. The big takeaway here is to always check the official admissions website for the year you're applying because requirements can change.
To really bring all this home, let's end with a real story. This is from a student named Jemima, a scholarship recipient who is one of 6 kids. For her, Stanford was just this impossible dream, her super reach school. But then she got in, and the financial aid package made that dream a reality she could actually afford. It just grounds all these numbers and policies in a real human experience.
So, in the end, we come back to where the application really starts, with you. In their application, Stanford asks what parts of your life, your interests, your character, would help you make a distinctive contribution. After everything we've talked about, the final question isn't for me to answer. It's for you. What will yours be?